Pain is a signal, not a diagnosis. For decades, the medical establishment and insurance payers have forced us to chase a single source generator. They want a neat, billable entity, a single herniated disc, a single inflamed nerve, a single point of failure. It fits perfectly into a spreadsheet, but it fails the human biology entirely. If your treatment plan is built on finding one smoking gun, you are being set up for failure. We are going to deconstruct the myth of the single source and audit the systemic terrain that actually dictates your recovery. We are looking for the why, not just the where. We have been trained to treat the body like a broken machine, where you swap out a part and call it fixed. This industrialization of pain is driven by insurance models that mandate a localized diagnosis to authorize a procedure. This is the old disease model, a binary logic that is fundamentally incompatible with how complex systems function. When you force a multifaceted human experience into a narrow, billable box, you ignore the reality of meta-inflammation and systemic drift. We are treating symptoms on a conveyor belt while the factory floor is on fire. This model ignores the three-step activation journey required for true healing. The human body does not work in isolation. It is a series of interconnected systems where structure, metabolism, and nervous system function overlap. A nerve signal in your back is rarely just about the disc. It is about how your metabolic state manages systemic inflammation, how your muscles support your skeletal structure, and how your lifestyle choices either dampen or amplify that inflammatory signal. When one portion of the system drifts out of balance, it creates a cascade. This is the biological soil analysis, measuring hsCRP, TNF-alpha, and IL-1 beta to understand the systemic load. It is easy to find a single source generator on an MRI. It is easy to point at a protrusion and blame it for everything. But the real failure is the refusal to admit that structural abnormalities are often ubiquitous in asymptomatic populations. The MRI is a forensic snapshot, not a verdict. Surgeons and interventionalists are often praised for identifying these obvious markers, but if they do not address the systemic terrain, the pain will return or it will manifest in a new location. We must stop chasing the signal and start fixing the system. A normal MRI is a trap if you don't audit the terrain. Take our metabolically bankrupt executive. 55 years old, central obesity, high stress, and localized back pain. He had a successful L5 to S1 discectomy. The MRI looked perfect post-op. The surgeon called it a win. But 6 months later, the pain returned with a vengeance. Why? Because his biological soil was toxic. His hsCRP was 5.0. His TNF-alpha was through the roof. He didn't have a back problem. He had a systemic inflammatory crisis that manifested in his back. The single source was gone, but the fire remained. We failed to address his metabolic sovereignty. True pain management requires a forensic audit of the metabolic terrain. We look at visceral fat, the strongest metabolic predictor of chronic pain. We address the leptin mechanism, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and the gut-brain pain axis. If you are fueling an inflammatory state with glucotoxicity, lipotoxicity, and dysbiosis, no amount of localized structural repair will provide sustainable relief. We must address the NLRP3 inflammasome and mitochondrial retrograde signaling. This is where we apply the Regen.MD stack to reanimate the system. We must reject the assembly line model. True recovery requires a forensic reconstruction. We use nerve block audits and stellate ganglion blocks under mandatory ultrasound guidance to reset the nervous system. We employ sub-millimeter precision for orthobiologic injections, PRP, MFAT, and platelet lysate, using power Doppler to ensure the payload reaches the exact target. This isn't just a procedure, it's a recalibration of your biological infrastructure. We are moving from sovereign seekers to clinical commanders. If you want sustainable relief, you have to stop looking for the one thing you can blame and start fixing the systems that actually keep you alive and moving. We must embrace the reality that pain is a complex systemic signal. It's time to stop the cycle of endorphin bankruptcy and start the journey of reanimation. At the Padda Institute, we don't just treat pain, we audit the system. This is the Padda protocol. Join us in rejecting the corporate insurance model and reclaiming your metabolic sovereignty. Visit Regen.MD to start your audit today.